Do-do-do.
Is there a theme music or what?
Bosco,
I would love to hear some theme music.
here's a story about a band.
Of a man named Brady. Well, it looks like we have a bunch of people waiting in here. Let's see. Hi, everybody.
Is there a theme music or what?
Bosco,
I would love to hear some theme music.
here's a story about a band.
Of a man from. Well, it looks like we have a bunch of people waiting in here. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Everybody.
Yeah, we heard you.
Is there
Great.
a music
So
or what?
we're here, Glen now.
Bosco,
I was muted in my security settings.
here's a story.
Hey, security settings count.
Okay, we have Glen now.
Gentlemen. It looks like we have a bunch of people waiting here. Hey, somebody's monitoring the YouTube channel. Don't monitor the YouTube live.
We're here, Glen now.
I was muted in my security settings.
Hey, security settings count. Somebody's monitoring the YouTube.
Okay, we have Glen now.
Gentlemen. Hey, somebody's monitoring the
Glenn,
YouTube.
did you use the messenger link or did you use the YouTube link?
link that I
I
sent you?
used the messenger link.
Monitor that as there's a major delay. You can watch it, but turn off the audio. Someone still has it on in their place there. Yeah, turn off the audio. Yeah, you can look at it because the questions come in on that level. But I think it sounds like we're all together. Ladies and gentlemen, the first. Oh no, someone's still got it going.
Messenger link.
Monitor that as there's a major delay. You can watch it, but turn off the audio. Someone still has it on in their place there. Yeah, turn off the audio. Yeah, you can look at it because the questions come in on that level. But I think it sounds like we're all together. Ladies and gentlemen, the first. Oh no, someone's still got it going. Can you guys believe that?
And one of you guys have got the YouTube on.
Yeah, just that. I'm looking and I don't see it here on my end. So someone check there. As soon as you mute the YouTube, who's ever got YouTube on and is monitoring the return, please. Okay, it sounds like it's gone. Excellent. Okay, we can start over here. Okay, I'll edit that at the beginning. Guys, welcome. It's the first time we've all been gathered together in 35 years.
Is that right, Joe? Joe's the math guy. 36?
Well, let's see. Yeah,
36 years.
it's true
It's
for
true.
everybody. We've been together in there's been 4 of us together. There may even be there were 5 of us together in 2004.
Yeah.
So also this marks the 40th year anniversary of the creation of the band. So
That's
happy
right.
40.
That puts it in perspective.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can start, how this odd thing all came together one day is like, I was looking for a record. Actually, what's odd is that I was looking for Quiet Life, Japan. And I decided to go to a record store down in North Vancouver. And Gary, I think it's this way. Gary was working there and he was so helpful. He helped me find the record. And then later that night, we went to the Love Affair and Gary and Dawn were together. And they told me they had a band and they said, hey man, why don't you come audition for the band? And then so I did. And we went and met at a Denny's somewhere. And then shortly thereafter, Joe, where's Joe? Joe's down there. Joe, put up your hand. Joe came along and before we knew it, we were rolling with the tunes, but we didn't have a proper vocalist. And remember how many guys we went through before we finally found the guy that walked in with the most charisma and he was as good looking as David Sylvian or any of the guys in Japan and still is. Look at Dale Martindale. Dale.
I can still remember when we went to that house on West 12th Avenue and Dale was sleeping on a carpet in the living room or something. That's when we first met him.
Glen Nelson, also a former North Vancouverite. The first time I ever heard of Glen Nelson was from my ex-girlfriend who said that she had a crush on you. So I had to find out who you were.
The only one.
And I always knew, oh, wow, he's going to be a handsome guy. He's got to be. And then he does. He turns out to be tall. And then also the great thing is that you guys are all come from a majorly inspirational background of what you brought to the band. You each brought a unique side, a unique inspiration and unique instruments, and also all of us are still alive. That's a testament right now. I think that serves to say that all of us were really kind of pretty regular, normal guys. And none of us were rolling up on cocaine or, you know, with a beer bottle under our arms even. We were pretty devoted guys, and we took the rehearsals pretty darn seriously. I remember when I missed a rehearsal once, Joe took me outside and said, "You better be here tomorrow." And I think I started crying.
Wow, Joe, you're tough.
Yeah.
It's a teacher personality.
Yeah.
Gotta take it seriously.
But Joe, you know, let's start with you. You know, Joe comes from a teacher background. You were a substitute teacher at the time, right?
Yep.
And the music that you were making, I mean, when we all look back on it, if you think about Joe's demos when we met him, he was kind of like the impetus on how we kind of seemingly went. Gary and Don were in a band before this together called Pinups, which I remember going to see, which was like back in that day, you had to be an expert when you covered songs. You had to cover them right, and you had to do it well, and you had to have it all down, and you had to make a good live performance. These guys were already on top of all that. Thing is what was great about when Joe came along is he gave an identity to the band right away, where I seemingly feel like we all followed this inspiration. You guys feel that way?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Joe brought this
prog rock thing, right?
I don't know if it was so much prog rock as it was just solid electronic basis.
I think what it was is
musicianship.
I think what I tried to do was every time that we had something new to try out, a new piece of equipment, Pro One, the 808, I just wanted to see if there was a way to do something with it. There was no guides. Nobody told us how to set up those things and connect them. I just wanted to connect things together and see what could happen. And that's because I'd always had to work out of circumstance. The demos that I had made before, one session I was doing, the drum machine didn't work. So I had to use the Pro Soloist, which is right here, incidentally, right there, as my drum machine. I had to put up a noise pattern and alter that through a delay. And so I was always just interested in how can we do things differently and come up with something original and unique for ourselves. And that's what I always thought was the best thing that we did, was just approach it and do it our own way.
Don, how about you? You were a marine biologist when we first started the band, weren't you?
And that's
Marine
true.
biologist.
Yeah.
Fun during the day, Images in Vogue, struggling musician at night. But at the same time, you also had inspiration. I think you were bringing in more of weren't you the YMO type inspired guy that came in with?
YMO, Japan, Ultravox, the John Fox era Ultravox. Those are all sort of influences coming into it. I mean, as a group of people coming together, it was quite an amazing thing because there was a crossover interest of your taste, and yet at the same time there was all these different backgrounds that people were bringing in that were really sort of broadened the palette that was possible.
It was interesting because Gary and I were actually teenagers at this time, and you guys were a bit older, so we were kind of following your lead. Gary, you were 18, right?
Yeah, I think so. 18 or 19. The context was that my first apartment was this place on Barclay Street across from the high school there. And Don lived in that building. And I met Don. Is this right, Don? And we kind of became friends that way.
Because I remember I think I had an ad in the paper or something, and we met through that.
Really?
Yeah.
We lived in the same building in Berkeley, so.
Yeah, that was later on though, because I was living out in Tawasin at that point when we first met.
Right. Okay.
Long time ago.
Dale, how old were you when you first came in that first day at the rehearsal space out in Burnaby?
2021. Joe would know.
Well, it was in 81, so you would have been 20.
20, yeah.
Joe, man, you have the memory of 100 people. It's so
Don't play Pursuit with that guy.
They all want it back though.
And Glenn, I think you and I are the same age, right? We're both
If so, 61.
61. Yeah. Well, we're not
1961.
We still got 2 more years before we're there.
Yeah, I was thinking that for a second. Wait a sec. Did I miss a couple birthdays?
Yeah, no, I'm glad we pointed that out to everybody. So, I mean, for me, I just have to say, I haven't seen Don Gordon in like, Don, you moved away to Vietnam. What year was that you moved?
Well, let's see, we moved to London back in '98 and then down to Vietnam in 2000.
Oh,
Well, and it wasn't supposed to be for a long time. It was meant to be like a 1 year, sort of a gap year, and somehow turned it into a 20-year experience.
Oh.
So, yeah. Actually, the last time I saw you, I think it was just before you took off to LA. You were in the Volkswagen, and you were packing up that day and waiting for the moving truck to show up.
wow. That's crazy.
What year would that be, Joe?
I think that was 97.
97, God.
That's the last time I was at Subcon. Didn't you move to Los Angeles in 97?
Well, yeah, early 98. So yeah, I packed it up in late 97.
And what weather like that day, Joe?
Well, it was sunny in Vancouver, but it was raining in LA.
Was Al Nelson sleeping in a stairwell at that time, Joe?
No, only I do that. Still.
I mean, I'd like to point that out. Yeah, Glenn is obviously Al Nelson's older brother, and bless his heart, Al Nelson's so missed, man. I miss that guy every day. Think about him, and yeah, of course that's how we met. But what's going on with you these days, Glenn? You went into the concert production business.
Yeah, that's basically what I did since I moved down to California in 1988 and got involved in concert production and concert promotion. So I worked for all the big promoters through just last year, actually, and then I moved back to the Lower Mainland just last October.
So you're currently living in Vancouver again?
Correct, yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. I think you were still a California boy.
I was until like 8 months ago, and then
Oh wow.
Enough was enough. I came back.
Well, it's kind of lucky, and especially I hope that you're not still in the concert production business right at this moment.
Well, I'm not, and fortunately I'm not, because it's going to be a long time till that comes back to normal. But I was a salaried guy, so I'd probably still be sitting back getting paid for nothing right now. So
yeah.
maybe I blew the timing just a wee bit.
And Dale, what are you up to these days? I've seen you're still young singer, you're still singing. I see your son's got a great band going. What are you up to?
And he's a little disappointed. His tour got canceled. But yeah, I've been out here in Toronto since mid '80s. And
August 26, 1985.
Yeah.
You never moved back to Vancouver or Chilliwack, where you were originally from?
For a year, yeah. And then the woman I was with at the time, and we got married out there, and then she decided she wanted to come back here. So we did, and had a band called 69 Duster, and then we do some painting, and I got a day job, and keep busy. Been doing a Bowie cover band thing, and writing some tunes with some people. Yeah,
I definitely have been keeping in touch with all you guys online. I've kind of the miracle of social media these days. We can follow you and stuff. And lately, it's been wonderful to see the Images in Vogue shows that you guys are still doing. Joe and Glenn and Dale, you're still actively involved in those shows that you guys are doing. And I watched one the other day where it was just like great versions of, there was slightly different versions of songs, like Lust for Love it just sounded right. It sounded good. And Dale, your voice has sounded great.
Yeah, I'm more
than ever, Dale.
Live stuff more now than I was back in the day, but experience pays off, I guess.
Yeah. Well, do you use in-ears now?
No, I tried them at our last show, and I didn't like them. But
they're tough to get used to.
Got to get enough. They think got to spend a lot of money on them for them to work properly, I guess. And yeah.
They take you a while to get used to them. I mean,
Yeah.
they're kind of like, you know, I don't like them, but I use them to save my hearing now.
Yeah, I probably should, because
Yeah.
I can't hear a lot of high end stuff, and my wife's like, "Hear that?" No.
Did I damage any of your guys' hearing?
Oh yeah.
Loud monitors.
You had a PA system for a
Sorry,
moment.
guys, I'm sorry. So we had a giant Martin PA stack next to me. It was like an actual bass bin, a mid, and a tweeter.
Yeah.
And it was loud, man. It was definitely above 120 dB, probably.
Well, you were about a foot and a half from it.
Was that Glenn?
You were about a foot and a half from it. I think it reached its maximum volume where it hit me.
Yeah.
That sounds
The
about
sound
right.
waves weren't fully formed yet when you were there.
The hi-hat ear, man. This is what got fried, because this was like right next to that tweeter.
What about your wrists playing those graphite drumsticks on the Simmons pads?
Oh, I have to tell that one story. So yeah, we were one of the first bands. I think we're the second band in North America to actually have Simmons drums.
Yeah.
Set up by Steve.
Saga, then us.
Yeah, Steve Negus set that up. So right away, we're given an offer to open for Roxy Music at the Coliseum. And we're young. We're still like right in our underpants still. And they put us on stage, and I don't know if you guys remember, but they didn't give me a monitor for the drums. In a Coliseum stage, I was hitting those tabletops, and the monitor was like like maybe 6 feet away, pointed in the other direction.
Wow.
But even still, we were able to play that show. But I have, you know, I don't know what the reviews were on that show, but Dale, you had your pants split open during that show too, right?
Did I? No, I don't know.
That was
I
Depeche
don't-
Mode,
I don't-
wasn't it?
I think you're talking about the time my zipper fell down at Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Depeche
That was
Mode.
Depeche Mode.
I thought it happened at Roxy.
Came out, so
At Roxy Music, they gave us 14 channels to put everything in. We had to sub everything down. And then because they were mad at us because of something with the PA system, the second night they gave us 11 channels
Why were they mad at us?
because something went wrong with the PA system. It was even written up in the Sun when whoever reviewed it, saying that we sounded okay, but by the time Roxy Music started playing, the PA system started crapping out and didn't sound so good.
Wasn't our fault.
They blamed us.
I remember being really sick for those Roxy shows.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
that was the second night.
So, do you guys remember that we had that bus and there was one window that was cracked open and we couldn't close it? And I think Dale was sitting right there, and that was it.
Yeah, I
By the
remember.
time we got to Edmonton, he was sick.
It was like a school bus setting.
It was a school bus.
Yeah, and it was hard to do the drive. I remember.
Arby.
But do you guys remember the shows? Do you remember playing? I remember that it was quite the challenge, and I don't know. It was nice that I still remember speaking to Brian Ferry and the drummer Andy McKay, Phil Manzanera. I actually have a signed single that I got from them that I thought was pretty cool. But my memories of them live, when they do the sound checks without Brian Ferry with the backup singers, how good they sounded just used to blow my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember standing out in the audience in Edmonton listening to it. It sounded amazing. I
Incredible.
remember Brian Ferry being backstage by himself with a cigarette and a brandy while they were playing the big instrumental thing in the middle of it.
The brandy. Wow.
I haven't talked about Gary today. Gary, you are like a first assistant director of like how many shows? Like, I mean, Gary has been working in the film industry ever since it was sort of like coincided for a while in the 80s, and has achieved like a first assistant director status, which is hard to achieve, being in the Directors Guild and all that. And Gary, it's so proud of you. You're always like working on killer shows, What the Magician and all that, to name a few, right?
Yeah, it's been a big adventure, and the thing I like about it that every one of them is different, and every day is different too. So I enjoy that. But you know, I miss the music side of it for sure.
Yeah, so that's why we brought you guys here today. We want to reform.
Well, you know, I'm still open to that West Coast date. You know, that would be great.
Yeah,
We got Don out here one time. We can do it again.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm closer now.
The plane ticket will only be $10,000. No problem.
You know, speaking of that, you know, Dawn happens to be right now. What, you're residing in Malaga, Spain?
Yeah, down in Spain. Been here since October.
And how's that going over there?
Haven't seen a lot of the country in the last 2 months. You know,
Yeah,
because they've had a lockdown because of the whole virus thing. Yeah, so it's been really unlike the U.S. where it's, you know, sort of quite mixed in terms of the response. Here it was very determined. It's like, yes, we are locking down, and you know, people were out going around. They're like, that's it, 1,500 euros, and they're real serious about it. And so people really, you just did not leave your house except to go pick up groceries or pharmacies and things like that up until about 2 weeks ago. And it's been a very strange experience because it's like, on the one hand, like it's a horrible thing going on. People are getting quite ill and dying. And yet at the same time, you're sort of bored because you're sitting in the midst of, you're not seeing it. It's out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing the news at one point thinking, oh, Spain's in trouble. And then, of course, it's just turned out America is like, you know, 6 times the numbers of Spain. And it's getting so bad here that people are, you know, are they doing the thing there where they're protesting the lockdown?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have it here.
They're not so silly like the people are doing here.
Yeah, no, and we didn't have any of the shortages or anything. So, you know, you go to the stores, you know, they were constantly stocked. You didn't, I mean, because you'd see these things in the news, like, yeah, no toilet paper. And none of this is like, seriously?
Yeah, that's ludicrous. But generally, let's say that this whole thing wasn't going on. Like you've been a university teacher for what, the last 20 years in Vietnam?
To about 16 years in Vietnam. But when I got to Vietnam, it was one of those fortuitous things when you sort of show up at a place where there's a major change in the society going on. And so when I first got there, I was involved in .com startups because it was before the .com crash. I was involved in game development and got onto the early Microsoft Xbox program, but the Xbox hadn't come out at this point, so they're bringing people on board to do that, and some other startups in there. And then it was one of those strange events where you're at a networking situation, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Hi, my name is blah blah blah, and we're opening a university." And you go, "How do you open a university?" Because you know, when you think of universities, you always think of these staid old buildings that have been around for 50 or 100 years and things. And what it was a long-established Australian university that was going to open a campus there. And anyways, it's one of these things where somebody's showing you a brochure of like the courses they're going to be running and going, "You're not going to find anybody who can teach that or teach that." And they go, "Well, how do you know?" I said, "Well, that's kind of what I do." And they say, "Why don't you?" And it's just one of those things where you never thought of doing something like this, and you try it out, and you suddenly realize that you're good at it and you really like it. And just sort of this whole thing that it just really opened up a whole new, you know, realm of possibility, and that led, you know, to getting further degrees whilst I was also working there and all the rest of it. It was a truly amazing experience.
You've also been known for another band since Images called Numb. Mm-hmm. That did you stop making Numb music for a while you've been doing the thing in Vietnam, or have you continued? I know you've started again now. You've just recently made a new release. Yeah,
last year. No. When I went to Vietnam in 2000, I was going to sort of take a year off, take a break, and because I had Numb come out that year on a Halogen album in '99, and then whilst I was there, I got so caught up in all these projects, you just had no time. And you go back several years later, and you go, "Wow, where did the years go?" And whilst I was doing music there, it wasn't related to that kind of stuff. I was doing some things in advertising industry, some sound design commissions and stuff, as well as doing the work at the university. And then about 3 years ago, I decided it was time to put out a new Numb, sat down, wrote it, came out last year.
But now you're ready.
Yeah.
You're ready to get back in. And you got a studio there this time.
A home studio, yeah.
Studio, yeah. Looks like everybody's got their own home studios there. Glenn and Joe, I saw you do opening for Mid-Year recently. I was very happy to see that set. I don't know if the rest of you guys watched that, but
It was fantastic.
Gary called
Gary
me,
was there.
live streamed it to me so I was able to stand with him and watch it. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Glenn and I have recorded hours and hours and hours of material over the years, some, in the same room and some passing back and forth, depending on where he was. And we always wanted to release it. But then, the song that we recorded back in 1983 was kind of what started things off again, because through Storming the Bass, they were releasing or wanted to release a bunch of Vancouver old electronic material, and they got in touch with Glen about E and Mobile Clones, not about the Glen and Joe, and we just kind of thought you might be interested in that too. It got released, and that's like a funny little door opener that makes it possible for us to do more things. And so we've done 2 actual Glen and Joe shows. One was opening for the sort of members of Images in Vogue show that we did at the bowling alley. And then the Mid-Year one came up through a friend who suggested us to the owner of the venue at the rickshaw. And it came off really well, although we had to play 15 minutes more than we had expected to in the set that we prepared. So it was a longer instrumental set. So I was quite amazed that people listened to that much instrumental music. It was a lot of fun.
It went over really well. The crowd loved it.
Too.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It's because we're such electrifying performers.
Well, Dale, you better watch out because Glenn was singing that night, and I'm telling you, he's got the chops.
Oh, look out.
Yeah, you better watch it.
I love the mic drop at the end too, Glenn.
Yes, I did. I know. Knock the whole thing over.
It's over. We're just getting out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We didn't get to meet Midge though. He was sick that night.
Oh,
He didn't come out and watch us do. He came out. I have a picture of us on stage that my son took from behind us when we were doing for Germans during the sound check. And Midge is a shadowy figure out, the only person in the audience. So he listened to us play for Germans, but he never actually came and talked to us.
That's pretty cool.
Glenn, I always loved the band you came from before Images in Vogue, E. That's a Vancouver band that most people maybe might not know the history of, or they really know the history of.
Well, yeah, as far as Vancouver scene goes, if you were part of the early punk and art scene back in the late 70s or 80s, then, Gary Bourgeois, who was the kind of the brains behind that band, was well known in that scene. And he came from a band called The Generators, who kind of touched on the punk scene at the time. So E came out of that as sort of an experimental art thing, and they played blenders on stage and just noise music for the most part. And I got involved in them in 1980. I'd placed an ad, as you guys had as well, at I think it was at Quintessence actually, and I got a response from Gary at the time, and we all got together. And the idea at the time was to do something like what was happening around the world with Kraftwerk and early Human League and John Fox. That was the idea. Everyone on stage playing a synthesizer, and there really weren't any bands at the time in Vancouver that were just presenting synthesizer pop music like that. So that was our launch. We did a couple of EPs and split up about a year and a half, 2 years later. And
I remember seeing you at the Commodore opening for somebody.
Duran Duran.
Thanks, Don. We opened for OMD the first time they came to
That's
Vancouver.
right.
Oh my
And
God,
then,
yeah.
a little Western Canada thing with the Simple Minds on the, I think it was the Empires and Dance tour, maybe, or the
Yeah, Empire.
Yeah.
No, that was Sons of Fascination.
Fascination. All right.
Oh,
We did
man.
that.
Here's a weird synchronicity about that. So the first day, so my band broke up in the middle of April, and I called Don the next day because of the thing that Elio Day had put in the Georgia Strait. And Don and I talked on the phone for a couple of hours that night about stuff. And then I came to meet you guys. And remember, Kevin came in with a copy of Depeche Mode, Dreaming of Me, and maybe Planet Earth 7 Inches to that place on Marine Drive where we were rehearsing.
Yeah.
And so we had our little meeting, and then we talked a little bit. I remember Gary Johnson said to me, "You better blow us away." So I said, "Yeah, no problem." And then that was the night of OMD.
Was it? Okay.
And so that was a weird thing that we went down there, and then you guys were there together, and I was there with some of the people from my other band, and we kind of nodded at each other. But then Glen was on stage there, so we were all together there. at that OND show, which was April 29th, no, April 21st, I think,
Awesome.
1981.
I forgot about that completely.
How did we make the connection between Glen and Images then?
Through E again.
Oh,
Because Jerry Barrett said, hey, you guys can open for Duran Duran if you lend us your profit. Something like that.
yeah. So we used Joe's Prophet 5 in the studio when we were recording an EP, and Joe and Gary came down. I think that's maybe where we met.
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
where I met you for sure the first time.
Was that for
I
the
was at
mobile
Water Street.
clones, Glenn? The mobile clones when you were doing
Mobile
that?
Clones, that was kind of my high school band. So what that was a 3-piece band, bass, drums, and synthesizers. So again, actually Artifact Records put out our old EP a couple of years ago as well. But what that was, sorry?
I still have that EP.
Oh, do you really? Wow.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty rough, but that was me and high school buddies. I had been playing guitar up to that point. I had summer jobs, bought a bunch of synthesizers in 77, something like that, because that's really what I wanted to do. So we put this little 3-piece band together, and we were kind of somewhere between prog rock and punk rock, kind of like the Stranglers and Magazine, that kind of stuff. It lasted a couple of years, but really never did anything. We did, I think, two gigs, one at the Smiling Buddha opening for DOA, and one opening for the Subhumans somewhere. And that was it for us. It was fun.
I was on the Internet Archive 6-8 months ago and came across the files for Stitching Small Tears.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And there was a couple tracks of yours on there, if I remember correctly.
That was around, I guess, 1980. There was a fellow in Vancouver by the name of Alex Douglas who had a radio show on Co-op Radio called Alien Soundtracks, and he was kind of the flag waver for electronic music in Vancouver. He was very well connected with anybody or anything that was doing that at that time. And we connected somehow through an e-gig, I guess. And he solicited some material. I happened to have some demos that I'd given him. He solicited that. And it was a cassette tape that came out with a bunch of people. And it was pretty cool to be a part of it because it was really early. It was kind of before anything else happened at that time, electronically in Vancouver.
It was pre-internet, so Alex Douglas was like the voice of what was the book called that he wrote that everyone was?
It was
Clem.
probably Alien Soundtracks, I think, was his
Clem.
program. So
That's right, Glenn. Joe. It was Clem.
Contact list of electronic music.
Yeah.
Right. It was a vital book at that time.
I've got 2 of those still.
Yeah, I remember we were over at his place one night, and that was when everybody was distributing things on cassette.
Yeah.
And he had this wall just filled with these obscure cassette releases that had been sent to him from all over the world.
Absolute pioneer he was.
Yeah, he was a great voice for the local scene and the folks like us that were all doing, non-guitar music at the time.
I always loved Art Bergman, man, when he was when you were playing with him. He's like a classical.
Oh, you mean Barry Taylor. Barry Taylor, the drummer.
Oh, Barry Taylor, yeah.
He was something else, like a bizarre style.
Just so good.
Yeah.
And Gary went on to the Payolas after that?
Oh, Gary did the Payolas before I joined. So it was a time between the experimental E and then the pop E where Gary was off doing the Payolas for a while. And he, I guess, decided not to do that after a little bit of success and went back to electronic music.
We've got a comment here that says, I'm dying to hear tour stories about Duran Duran. I got to say, that was an experience, and what we witnessed there was like a form of Beatlemania that we were witnessing at the time. Like the reaction to those guys at that time was quite amazing. What's your guys' memories of that tour? Gary, I know that you must have a lot of.
Well, I just remember going to Calgary and standing on the floor for their sound check and kind of, pinching myself a little bit, just going, oh my God, we're actually here doing this. And it was very surreal. But I just remember the noise of the crowd. It was like a jet engine, with the screaming and the craziness of it. And I think we actually did pretty good, all considering. I do remember that by the time we got to Seattle, that we got pulled off a song early because it was so out of control with the with the crowd and people. Girls were getting squished in the front, and there you go, Joe, right there. What's that? Is that the contract? What is that?
Yeah, that's our advance sheet for it.
Oh my
Duran Duran in Seattle.
Oh wow, cool.
Is it all backwards?
Dale, what was it like to have to go and be a singer and
backwards on mine.
open for a band?
Anyway, we got $500 for it.
What was that like? Did you feel pressure at the time, or was it just like, let's do it?
No, it was just fun. It's easy when the crowd's that into it, I mean, it's like, it takes a lot of pressure off the band, I think, because they're just so excited. And yeah, Seattle was crazy. I remember that was, it was like Beatlemania.
I think you did a really spectacular job from my memory, man. You held it together, and I felt very proud of the performances that you did. And I always felt like that was like the dream moment, I guess. I have this one memory where we were backstage and we were walking along to go to sound check, and there was a door that was open to outside, and all these girls were out there. And as we were walking along, I guess they thought we were Duran Duran or something. When we were walking along, the door was coming down, and as the door went down, the girls' eyes were following all the way until the door was like an inch, and they were literally lying on the floor, like trying to see that last inch. You remember that? I don't know if any of you guys ever saw that.
But I remember that. I remember driving out from the Coliseum as well and not being able to get out of the parking lot because they were all over the car that we were in, the van.
You guys remember all the stretchers that were laid out with girls that got hurt when we were coming off the stage? That was
in Seattle, and all the shoes on the floor. Everybody lost a shoe at that concert in Seattle.
Oh yeah. It was crazy.
I remember that those guys were pretty nice guys, considering, what they were at that time. They could have been, really conceited and assholes, but they always took the time to say, hey, how was the show? How was the audience, mate? And all this stuff. And I remember talking to them.
Remember we met them the first time they came through Vancouver when they played at the Commodore.
Yeah.
And I remember we were at a party afterwards with keyboard player, I think the drummer.
Glen, you opened for them, right?
I opened for them.
I did. That was my brief, like 5-minute solo career, and I got it.
Yeah, that was awesome, though. I
That was the place down on Beach Avenue, that sort of old
Tudor mansion.
Tudor Manor.
Yeah, and we were there till sunup. I remember it was there was a lot going on.
Yeah, well, we were so that was in the height of like our image, I'll say, and it was at the definite height of their image. I remember that Nick Rhodes looked good, man. He was like, they look just like the pictures out of the magazines. And then all of a sudden you're just sitting there chitty chatting with them. And I remember that we crossed the common ground with, we all loved Japan. We all thought that, Steve Jansen was the best drummer, or, Mick Karn was the best bass player. And we're talking about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Roxy music.
It was nice to reunite with those guys and have that kind of feeling like that. At least, we had met before, and they're super cool guys. I remember when we played with Depeche Mode, they weren't so nice. Twice we opened for Depeche Mode in the day. Once at the Commodore and once in Toronto.
At the concert hall.
That they just maybe just weren't personable. They just weren't the same type of friendly, personable guys.
Yeah, I don't really remember too much about meeting them. I don't even really know if we got to meet them.
I don't remember talking to them. I remember talking to their road manager and talking to somebody else, one of their crew guys. They only had one crew person. And the crew, wasn't the road manager a lady? And we went to Love Affair with her, but she made them go to the hotel because they were underage.
Oh, really?
Like that. Yeah, that first time. That was here.
They were underage then?
I think a couple of them were.
Wow.
And then in Toronto, I just remember the singer had gotten a tattoo and he was in a bad mood.
Oh yeah, Dave.
Yeah.
Lots of comments.
You guys remember this? At the end of the Depeche Mode gig in Toronto, Bob Roper said to us, "That's the last time you guys ever load gear."
Oh yeah.
Things like that. And he's like, oh yeah. Big time after that.
We didn't load gear there because it was a union hall.
That's right.
Oh, there you go. So maybe he was right.
Yeah.
Ish.
About 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I remember playing for Seymour Stein one night, and then he was sitting up on the balcony of the Diamond Club in Toronto, and you could see that he was physically asleep.
I remember that.
Was that the Diamond or was that the Copa?
Copa, yeah, the Copa. Gary, you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He was asleep. Oh, good. That's always a good sign.
Means he was relaxed.
Yeah, he was relaxed. We were lulling him. Yeah, those gigs. I mean, some of them were challenging, but the most challenging aspect of, I think, for us is that we decided as a band to take an immense amount of equipment on the road for a band of our kind, and then we would end up being the ones also loading it. And I got to say that load in and load out at the Wellington in Winnipeg.
Wow.
I don't know what year that was. What year was it, Joe?
83.
83.
83. That would have been like in March 83.
So that load in and out,
I can look it up if you
that
want.
gig in general, I think it has to take the record for the hardest amount of work done for a show for what that venue was worth. It was a strip club, and I think that we had the strippers would come on and strip, and then they'd stop, and we would set up, and then they'd strip, we'd set up, and I think like everybody who ran that place, I swear that they were like related to Frankenstein.
Remember the hotel? Remember that
The
hotel?
Frankenstein lady. Don't you have a picture of her?
I do. I have a picture, and I have a picture of Glen. Glen, a picture of you where you're just freezing. I think it was like 35 below or something, and we're out there having
we
a load
loaded
beer.
out that night.
You're
It was so
freezing,
cold.
sitting on a heater. I should
It
send
was
you
so
that.
cold, our hands were sticking to the truss pieces in the back of the truck.
I remember having to carry that Simmons case down that square stairway into the basement to get down there. It took us like half an hour to get it down the stairs.
It was one of the hardest load-ins and outs of my life. And since then, I think I permanently pulled my back from that period.
Yeah.
But
Well, Joe was always the master truck loader, if you remember that.
Yeah.
absolutely like science. The thing is when you're a kid like that, or when you're young, basically those things, they just don't seem to like matter. It's like you do it, and that's all part of the job.
Yeah.
And it's a pay your dues part of the thing. I mean, most of the tours that Images did were so pay your dues tours. I remember we headed off from Revelstoke towards Calgary, and it was like the road was full of snow, and it was pounding down snow, and you wouldn't even want it to even get on that road, let alone put it with six young guys. Do you remember how many times we drove in that vehicle where it was like, it just wasn't probably the safest thing to be doing?
Was that my old Buick Skylark that we drove in?
Oh my God. Well, that's
It broke down.
And it broke down, and then we got
Blew up.
stranded. We had to take the bus to Edmonton, remember?
Yeah,
that's when we opened for Long John Baldry.
That's right. That's right.
It wasn't an opening. It was a coach. Remember, he did a set, we did a set. He did a set, we did a set. It was alternating sets. And Glen opened. It was a 5-set night.
But he was the king of rock and roll.
He sure was. Yeah, he was a great guy.
a great guy.
Dale,
Yeah.
Dale, didn't you end up becoming pretty close friends with him
Yeah,
later?
We hung out a bit in Vancouver. I'd go to his shows, and he'd come and see us and hang out backstage. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, very cool.
Gail, I guess living in Toronto, you must have a lot of people come up to you and give you a memory that's based on what Images in Vogue did for them in their life. What's the most prominent thing that you feel you've done for somebody, or something that would surprise us that you've experienced?
Well, a lot of people that wear glasses thank me that I got them through their high school years. Made them feel cool because they had glasses as well. But it's funny because a lot of the shows we do now in Toronto, those fans are still coming to shows and stuff, So they haven't left us.
That's really awesome. So you do find that they are the same people that were supporting back in the day.
A lot of them.
Wow.
A lot of them. I'm sure Susan Yang is watching this right now.
Hi, Susan. Let's give a big up to Susan. Who else we got to give a big up to, Dale?
Who else? Sheila. Got a lot of regulars that come out. like one big family now, you know, it's like.
So speaking of families, how many of us out there have kids? Glenn, I know you've got
One.
Joe, how many you got? Three?
Three.
Don?
Do two cats count?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
That's
Dogs.
Gary, two.
two legitimate. Yeah.
Gail, just
Yeah, just the one. Yeah.
I have two stepchildren through my wife, Rihanna. I've been with them since they were 3 and 5, and now they're 13 and 15.
Wow.
So I guess that semi counts.
Sure does. Yeah,
But
kids are.
what do your kids think about what Images in Vogue? Like, I mean, I've found now that if I go and play, if I play these records, if I put these on now, these are real new wave.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety Reaction. I'm sorry, that song. It
Killer.
still moves. It still does it for me. Fade Away. Even like the thing where I used to cringe somewhat when I would watch like some of the old videos. Now I'm seeing the videos and I'm thinking how perfectly new wave this is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hear the music through totally different ears now. You know, it's like, yeah, it really gives you appreciation for Joe's playing and everybody. It was
Everyone.
beyond a lot of other bands, I think, at the time. I wasn't even that, wasn't that crazy about my singing at the time, but listening back, it's okay.
No, Gail, you had charisma, and you did sound good. You can show it now that basically, you were you, and that's the greatest thing about it.
That's right. That's a good way to put it. And you always got better, Dale.
Yeah, the learning,
improving.
The musician really coming into it, so I had to learn on that. On the floor.
Well, we did just literally pull you out of a nightclub because your hair looked good. So
That's
I think
pretty
you
much.
did pretty well considering.
Who's responsible for meeting Dale?
I think I am.
Isn't it Kathy Darby?
Gary and Kathy, yeah.
That's right.
Kathy Darby told Gary that guy should be in your band.
Yeah, we were in, and Kevin, were you there? We were in a place called, was this right? Froggies?
Froggies on Gas.
Oh wow, Froggies.
Yeah. Used to be later it was the Twilight Zone, and I don't know
Dale
what.
was dancing?
No, he was just hanging out.
I don't think I was there. I think that you must have scoped Dale.
But you're right. It was Kathy Darby said, "Look at that guy. He looks like Steve Jansen, or he has cool hair, or something." I said. Then I just came and talked to you. I don't even know what I said. Hey, you want to be in a band?
You talked that night? Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, we talked. And then at that time, we had the practice space out in Burnaby, right? Creative Lighting.
Yeah. And I think Kathy gave me a phone call a few days later. And I was actually kind of surprised.
Creative Lighting, look at that.
Wow, look at that. That's crazy, Joe.
Pretty unique rehearsal space.
It's got
I guess somebody would call me a hoarder.
No, you've got memories of what you have.
They're physical.
An archivist.
So
Yes.
Didn't somebody fall through the floor? Do you remember that?
That was Kevin.
yeah, I fell through the floor into the office below after we finished. One of our
fall through. It was just
Big
one
trouble.
leg. Just one leg.
Tired that I stepped off, I guess, one of the beams into pure drywall. Just whoosh right through.
But why were we paying full rent for that place when only half of it had a floor?
I know.
Good point.
We had it set up really nicely at certain times, though. And
It was like little islands.
one thing that I really enjoyed about going to the rehearsal space and being with you guys is, okay, each one of you guys has specialized in your own sort of world. So Glenn, you had your world, which I believe at the time was an ARP 2600, and you brought in some of different stuff that Joe, you had, we were lucky to be able to get the Prophet 5 and the Pro ones.
Soloist and the strings. Right there.
The best strings ever, the Selena. Is it the Selenas?
No, it's the Yamaha SS30,
Such classic strings.
which is based on the CS80 string sound.
And the Pro Soloist on top, right?
Yep.
Also known as the mechanical ant. Remember
Mechanical
that?
ant. It still lives.
Kevin, Remember this?
Don, you had was it the Yamaha 30M or what was it? It was a Yamaha.
It's funny because I came across one of those on eBay the other day, or not eBay, or Reverb or something, and I couldn't believe how much money they're asking for it. Because at the time, what just wasn't much of a synth. And I remember we were going, well, let's get rid of this and get something else then.
So it was a 30M?
I can't remember,
40M.
40M?
CS 40M.
Was 40M?
Yeah.
There was that, and we had an ARP Odyssey, I remember at one point too.
Yeah.
And
With the ARP Odyssey.
I think Gary and I bought that. Didn't we have that studio down in?
I had one for a while too.
Yeah, because we used that at various times. You guys also had a mini Moog when I first came out to rehearse with you guys.
That's right.
And also what was great is when you guys asked me to come out, you already had a drum set there, and we had the full Pollard 8-pad Syndrome, which is like, you try and find that today. It's impossible. But if you do, it's like $5,000. But we had, like, you already had, I guess she was a girl that had been drumming for you that stepped aside or something. And
Really?
How is it that they came with a drum kit when I showed up there? You guys already had a drum kit. Rototoms and everything. Remember, Gary?
Really? I can't remember.
So the kit that I used for the first Fashion Dance gig, which was what date, Joe?
September 26, 1981.
was this kit, which was a amalgamation of some parts. But I love that Pollard. If I could get that Pollard again one day, man, I would just love that. But
I just remembered who that drummer was. Her name was Wendy.
yeah, it was a girl that I wasn't. Yeah. Didn't she used to play in pinups or your previous band that you were in?
She was involved, I think, with Strange Advance at some point. Does that sound right? Wendy Chapman. Does that sound right, Joe?
I have no idea. That's before my time.
Maybe that was like before you even.
That would have been you and Don and Gary Johnson had a drummer
That's
before
right.
me that had this kit, and maybe she just left it, or I remember you telling me it was a girl.
Yeah, it was. Don, didn't Tom Hydu play with us at one point?
Yeah, there was Tom, and I don't remember the transition there.
Yeah.
Because I remember going to that studio on 4th Avenue. Was it 4th? No, 9th Avenue, where, because we'd recorded some stuff and then we had to replace the drums with another drummer who came in. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after that was when we did the first demos for Images, and they didn't have a delay. So I remember Gary faking the delay on one of the words.
Yeah.
But I remember coming in, and I knew nothing about electronic music at all. And then just from being around you guys, that's where I learned everything from you guys. So you guys were wonderful teachers. Everything that I ever digested, I learned from something that you guys showed me or something that I was around from you guys. So it was a super awesome experience for me to be able to learn that at that time. And yeah, now I just find it an invaluable period. Joe, like, I mean, you were onto shit that, like, your idealisms about how to program. And then Gary, I think that you helped us access things, like the first TR-808 that ever came along came as a result of you. And then I don't know where the syncussion came in. Who brought in the syncussion?
If you guys recall, like, I was working at Discus and then I ended up working at Law & McQuaid.
Right.
So it was like the shipper receiver there. So, you know, that helped out a little bit.
But okay, so the whole concept of taking the Pro 1 and then taking the trig out of an 808 and putting in the trig input and putting a sequence as a certain number of notes and then triggering it from the pulses of the 808. Who was the one that came up with the plan to compose songs that way? Joe?
Don and I spent a lot of time at the Arbutus Street warehouse just doing that, where we just kind of plugging in and seeing how many different things you could trigger. Like, we figured out that you could trigger the syncussion from it as well, from the 808, and just hooking up. As soon as we had the Pro 1, we thought, let's try connecting all these things. And Don and I would spend long nights there just working. I have somewhere a tape of us playing Travel. I think it's just me and Don. Maybe Gary was there too. so there's no drums, but just playing it. And I remember people walking by from the Ridge Theater kind of stopping to listen as we were playing, and just seeing how we can sync things up. So there was a lot, of things that we just, oh, maybe this works, maybe this doesn't. So everybody in those days came up with their own unique way of connecting things.
Yeah, no, and I remember you experimenting a lot with like the random element as well too. Like not worried about getting it to be precise. It's like, okay, so it works 80% of the time, and the other 20%, that's the mystery.
Yeah. Well, you got to leave that room there for that to happen anyway. But definitely there were things like, I remember hooking up the CS40M to two different outputs of the 808, the trigger outputs, and putting Q-tips into the keys of the 808 of the CS40M, and that's how the breaking up came. It was just two notes that we could put Q-tips in.
When I listen back now, I hear sounds that I wonder how they were done, which is amazing. That like you think they weren't predictable sounds. That how you and Don did the rhythmic stuff, and then the next stage of the game would be the entrance into Mushroom Studios or Bullfrog. I mean, entering a studio for a young band is always an experience, but entering with you guys, it felt like, oh my God, if you were going to ever learn anything in your life, it was going to be at these moments. So also the issue of sync and the issue of taking electronics and working with them effectively in those environments was something that I feel that almost had to be created for us to achieve. Like say Quiet Room, when you first went into Quiet Room, if you're going to run the tape again with another synced part, that wasn't like easy understandable how to run a SMPTE tone to have some sort of like machine follow that and then spit out the proper amount of MIDI clock so that your other instruments could follow it. Who was onto that at that time?
Well, we didn't actually sync anything to tape until much later. We synced everything to the 808. And we put down the 808 and everything had to go in the first pass. And you might remember the first recording of Quiet Room, their deck at Water Street was having some timing issues. And so all the tracks were going out of sync with each other and out of pitch with each other. So we had to re-record it. So Quiet Room, we hooked up the Prophet and the Pro One, both doing that same sequence. The Prophet was controlled by the Pro One. The Pro One was controlled by the 808. So the final version of Quiet Room, we had done it that way. But then that had to be recorded. And that's why we had so many sequences that didn't change, or drum patterns that didn't change, because we couldn't really go back and do anything with them once they were recorded. So we had to be happy with it the way it was.
I always found that the issue of sync back in the day before proper sync and the ways that they were achieved were quite miraculous. I was wondering who brought that, whether it's like Lindsay Kidd or some part of the production team at who made the decision? Said, "Oh, I'm gonna run everything from a trig from the 808." Was that you, Joe?
I think what we were doing is reproducing how we did things live, because we had everything running from the 808 or from the DMX later on live, and so we had to record all those things in the first pass live. Everything else, think about it. Educated Man, we didn't even have a click track for that one. That's just recorded straight live.
Sure, yeah.
You were our sync.
I guess I always followed a 808 and that was a sync. But the thing is if you're dealing with like tracks where you're laying down multi-tracks and people are running sequencers, say not on the first take, so you want to run it on the second take or the third take, you were assigning something to be triggered from something. So that whole idea of that came from you guys, as far as I could see. That was like for me, it was like embedded into my system, sync after that. And what did you guys take away from those sessions? Do you take away any great source of light and inspiration that you had from those days still, or you just moved, or you guys all moved on into your careers?
One thing I wanted to mention, Kevin, was that Don and I had gone into Bullfrog with pinups to do some recording. And so when we went there with Images, it was old hat. We kind of knew the place, and we knew Bart was the guy, the engineer, Joe.
Yeah, Bart Gurr.
Yeah, and he was a character. But I can't recall if we inherited Lindsay from Mushroom, or if Lindsay was actually at Bullfrog as well.
No, Lindsay wasn't a Bullfrog. When we were at Water Street and we were kind of disappointed with what happened with John Davey, Christopher
Right.
John Davey.
Yeah.
You came, somebody mentioned to one of you guys that there was this new British guy working at Mushroom and we should go talk to him. And so we went in there and we agreed that we would go there. And this is when Dale was still practicing the vocals at Bullfrog with Kim. And we went in and recorded for Germans just as to see whether we could get along with Lindsay and was it a better studio to work in for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we fell in love with it, I think.
Right.
But to me, I just love that environment. Every time that we went in there, it felt good and we knew that something good was going to come out of it. I never felt that there was anything that we did there that wasn't at least of good quality or that we were totally dissatisfied with.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything else was done there from that point. We did do a little bit at Little Mountain, but not much.
Well, we moved to Little Mountain because, sorry, Dale, because Lindsay quit Mushroom between the recording and the mixing of the Lust for Love EP.
Oh, right. That's right.
Remember? So he said they made me a new offer. I'm going over there. We have to mix the rest of the EP there.
Okay.
And so I think we did the vocals and the mixing of those tracks there.
Crazy. Now, wasn't there a song that we recorded with our pants down?
That would be for Germans.
That was for Germans, right? Do you remember that, Kevin?
Brought back the memory. I do remember that now.
Yeah. Well, you know,
something wasn't happening, and I don't know whose idea it was, but it's like, all right, everybody, take your pants down and let's try it.
I get a feeling it was my idea.
Oh my God, I just remembered that. I have not thought of that since, you guys. That is classic.
Dale, I don't think you were involved with that. It's probably a good thing.
Dale was playing the 808.
He was doing the
Not.
Everybody was there.
Everybody was there.
I
Dale,
remember
did you have your pants down?
Hands down though.
You didn't take your pants down?
I don't remember that. No, but you know.
You just waited till you were on stage for your pants to come down.
Glenn,
Was Mushroom still there? Or?
Glenn, you had your pants down?
I wasn't even there. I wasn't there yet.
Glenn wasn't there yet.
Glenn wasn't there yet at
I might have my pants down somewhere else. But
No, because that was January '82. Glenn didn't start showing up at the studio with us till like later in March, probably.
Oh,
Remember,
well, yeah,
we always.
Here's a good question, Joe. How many times did we play The Love Affair?
7.
Wow.
Shit. 7 times. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think it added up to that much.
Yeah.
So,
Well, because we did a few 2-nighters.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
So there, if you consider the 2-nighters, we did it 5 times, but there were 7 nights that we played there.
So didn't Glenn first start? He was opening for us at the Love Affair at one with the
That's
Rising
right.
Sun.
Yeah, those were the
That
July.
was Gary Johnson was still singing and Glenn opened, right?
No,
no, Dale was there already.
Oh, was he? Oh.
Yeah, and then we just said we got to have him. What was it that brought that unity together, Joe?
well, part of it was after we recorded Educated Man, we couldn't play it live. And we didn't really have sequencers to do it. So we thought, I guess we better get a human in here instead.
Human.
Yeah, thank you. I still get harassed about that.
I love that.
And Uman.
Ruben.
Yeah, I think that was it. That when we recorded Educated Man, suddenly we didn't have enough hands between Don and Gary and I to be able to do it. And so it kind of, well, what do we do? Because I remember when we played Educated Man, when we went to Edmonton, at Scandals with Long John, it was hard to figure out what part should we be playing. Because I was playing what really is a sequencer part, but doing it manually. And Don was the only person playing anything harmonic or melodic. And Gary was playing the bass part, and there were like 3 parts missing.
So Glenn, was it tough when
And
you?
Glenn had the Oberheims as well, so he had the sexy
Yeah.
synthesizers.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he had the it was the yin and yang of the Prophet and the Oberheim.
So was it tough when you first joined, Glenn? Did it seem like you came from a prog rock band, so it's probably seemed pretty easy for you, right?
Well, I wasn't much of a player, so it was the toughest thing was learning the parts. We all got along so well, and just the combination of everybody's influences was huge. But you know, the most difficult part was just learning the songs, and I already knew them from hearing them, so it was relatively easy, I think, for the most part.
I mean, it's kind of sad that a club like the Love Affair can't really still exist now, that people can like go and actually see what that place was, or see, you know, some sort of feeling from it. Because I think that club was pretty integral to like some of our goals. I think at the time we said that, you know, I just wanted to really hear one of our songs in the club. And I think the first time we ever started hearing our songs in the club was when we really felt like, wow, this is really happening. It didn't feel like, you know, we had these goals other than to just like make music that could potentially be part of that scene. That was a pretty amazing scene.
What was the first song, the Images song that we heard in Love Affair?
I thought it was for Germans.
Yeah, I think it was for Germans. Although
Right.
I think Kim might have played Anxiety Reaction there. The Bullfrog remix of it.
Right, right. That's pretty cool.
And I've tried to convince Stephen Gilmore so many times to do one of these things, but he's so bashful he won't. But you know, Stephen Gilmore was really quite integral in helping the band make a pretty amazing image and help us stick to it all along. And I you know, we still know Stephen to the day. He's an awesome guy. But the whole approach of Images in Vogue had a pretty solid basis. What are your guys' memories on the old band meetings we used to have? Remember those?
The band meetings?
Wasn't it called Bonehead and something?
BH&H.
BH&H.
Bonehead and Homos. That was Joe's thing.
No,
So,
don't
Kim's thing.
tar me with
We had
that.
these band meetings, and then this finally led to one where it was like, we've got a guy that we want you to work with, and he's the dream weaver. His name is Gary Wright. We want you to go, and we want you to make an album with him. And so who made the idea that we had to go to California? Gary?
Well, I think that was just presented to us, that was the deal. And that's where his studio was. And what was the option, Joe? Wasn't there another guy that did Rough Trade or something?
You know, we were always asking for like Mike Thorne or, you know, people that we thought were interesting producers doing things that we liked. And then Warner's would come back to the list of some Canadian people like Gene Martinick or
right.
I can't remember who the other person was. And, you know, there was just, I think from their point of view, Gary Wright was a good idea because he was American, and it would be a good way to get your records out of the United States if you have an American producer. And so that was there was a bit of a push from Kim and a bit of a push from Warner's as well to do that. And then, you know, California, apparently some people like it enough to live there.
It happens. I remember a meeting at the Bayshore Inn. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we met at the Bayshore Inn, and then we went to the warehouse, and then we went to, what was that little coffee shop on Hamilton at the corner?
I can't remember.
You know, in the same block as the warehouse.
Yeah.
There was a little coffee shop on the corner of Hamilton and not Nelson, but the street one north of it.
I just regretted hitting a snare drum while Gary Wright tried to get a gated reverb sound. Remember, he had not worked with a noise gate before, and so we're like, no, you put reverb and you gate the reverb and then make a gate.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of things. I remember you being in that garage for about a day, hitting that snare drum, just smoking in gas fumes. And
we even got a noise complaint. I had to hit it for so long.
And the dogs and the reverb.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, the studio itself, Gary's studio, was quite inspiring. You know, I remember a lot of old Moog modular stuff, and a lot of like prototype looking gear. And the more I listen back to some of the stuff from that album, you know, actually, I think the outcome was better than what, you know, it was better than what I thought, actually.
It's not
No.
better than what I thought.
I don't know, Kevin. It was pretty bad.
I thought there were some good songs, but just the sound of the studio was not what we were expecting.
But I was surprised that a song like "In the House" would come out of a session like that. It kind of seemed like it had solid arrangements and stuff like that. It wasn't something that was just like tinkered down with like, hey, go in the garage and do the beat. It kind of like came around that some of the compositional aspects of it got pretty good.
Yeah, that was really Glen and me working on our own as much as Gary Wright having any influence into it. That was just us trying to do what we do, which we got to do less of down there.
It was nice though, except I think that the traveling experience for young guys again made it unusual.
Well, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You add up all the experiences and they're invaluable. I mean, in actuality, I wish in some ways that I had advanced onto another career like you guys have, that I could like be just reminiscing about this shit. Studio is like, 35 years later, it's not as fun without you guys.
Well, I think
Trying to get back in the studio.
what I'm saying, it's like the fun was in the creation with you guys as a group.
It was a good time to be around, that's for sure.
Back in the studio. Get back in the studio and do another record, you guys.
Yeah. Like Joe would say, I got an idea, and you'd hear it, we'd be jamming on it, and then a couple of days later, you'd hear some parts coming together and stuff. And I don't know, I just think that that's better than like sitting down in your own home studio and really thinking, oh God, I got 10 years to make a song, and then it's like, it just isn't the same.
well, it is. It's always hard to work.
Might be able to get some good rates at Brian Adams' studio right now. So, we'll get Dale out here, get Don over here, and we'll go to Sitar.
Yeah, Don.
Yeah.
So what's the plan, Don? What's the plan for the future?
How long are we looking? 6 months, 6 years? What are you talking?
You planning on coming back to Vancouver anytime soon
Not to live.
to visit?
Yeah, I was originally going to be there early this year, because I've still got a bunch of stuff in storage there that I was planning to deal with, and that's sort of on hold for the moment. But
I would absolutely love to come to Vancouver and see you guys. Yeah. What about you? It's the last time you've been to Vancouver.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Who? Me? Oh, I usually go once a year to see my parents out in Chilliwack. Yeah. So I'm coming out again probably June, July, hopefully. Thinking of driving an RV out to avoid the plane. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. And,
What is the future plans for Dale Martindale?
well, I'm actually working on stuff right now with some people, and because we've had all this downtime. Joe and I are working on a few songs, but Joe's a very busy guy, and it's hard. It's hard.
Hey, I just sent you some stuff this week, man. Come on.
Awesome. So those new Images in Vogue songs, Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, they're just new songs. I mean, you never know what they're going to be. Maybe they're Dale Martindale songs. Maybe they're, Images in Vogue style songs. Just whatever comes out. And then some things, they're that, especially when Glen and I come up with stuff, does it even, is it's going to be instrumental? That's how we kind of think of it. And then, if it's good that Dale might be able to sing on it, then we hand it over to Dale.
It'd be great to just get in the studio with all you guys for 2 weeks in Vancouver somehow, if we could ever do that.
That'd be great.
I don't know if you guys are monitoring the chat comments, but a lot of comments saying this is just the beginning of a reunion. So it's the first step. First step of a reunion.
Well,
And
we have
Joe-
talked about doing a reunion show in Vancouver that includes Kevin and Don,
Yeah.
and doing
And the original equipment.
Yeah, and doing a set list that like a lot of the early stuff that's a little more electronic. And what do you think, Dale?
Yeah,
that one.
Really
Man,
great.
I would love it.
We should book in some studio time as well with that.
Yeah, you should. I heard that the Shell of Mushroom Studio still exists there, but that they moved the control room up to where the tape vault used to be.
Yeah, they divided it into smaller rooms, the big room, and made an upstairs in it, I think. So it's like they built a tape vault over where the room where the piano was originally, and then they expanded. I think the whole thing is now small rooms, like small production rooms. But I don't know who's in control of it, because for a while it was Hipposonic West, and I don't think they call it that anymore.
This is something that people would get behind, though. Whatever they talk about, well, what would be an interesting theme? Well, send a band back to an original studio, document it, and somehow make something out of it, and then make something very interesting visually. I think that so many people, wouldn't you guys, you people out there watching, agree that that would probably be a pretty interesting thing to see?
For sure.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. I mean,
Come on, Don, fly up.
Yep, I'm just sitting there going, the old Prophet 5 needs a bit of work.
Yeah,
Maybe this year, maybe next year. Let's
well, you know, with the way that this is going, we're going to have to hang on for a little bit. That's for sure. And then the Glen and Joe show. You got something planned coming up? More new Glen and Joe show?
Yeah, there's actually some stuff being released on Friday.
Oh wow! Where?
Sort of semi-independently. We've got 2 songs with 2 videos coming out. They're both instrumental. One's a little bit more happy electronic, the way that, you know, Glen and I are happy fellows, and the other, and it's got a little bit of video of us in Glen's studio working on it, and then another one is just more of an ambient Tangerine Dream with a little bit of noise added to it kind of track. So those 2 tracks are coming out next Friday on Bandcamp and Spotify and YouTube and all those places.
Bandcamp / Glen and Joe show?
The Glen and Joe show.
cool.
Everybody check that out. And Dale, where can people find your stuff?
Nowhere yet.
Don, you said you got some new Numb coming up?
Yeah, that'll be later this year. The last one was out. I mean, most of the catalog's available on Bandcamp. There's a couple unreleased, a couple titles that haven't been. I'll probably get those out again this year.
Bandcamp / Numb?
Believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I wrote Don. I love that new album of yours, or the one that came out earlier. That's one of my listen to tracks when I go for my walks all the time. I've always got listening to that one. I really, really, really like it.
When did you make that album, Don?
When or how?
When?
When I was in Vietnam still, so late 2018, early 2019.
So still in Vietnam.
And yeah, so I just at home, sort of home studio set up, and stuff at the university too. I mean, that was a great thing about working at university is I had their resources to work with as well too. So, and things, but yeah, so I did that, and it was a bit rusty because I hadn't been doing a lot of engineering, and it took a while to get my head back into that. And so the mastering went back and forth for a little bit longer than it should have, because it would come back and I'd go, oh, okay, so that's how it's sounding mastered. Okay, I need to change this. And so you'd end up remixing and tweaking things a number of times till you get it right.
What's your DAW of choice?
Logic, been using that forever.
Logic, what version?
Well, the new one just came out this week. I haven't downloaded it yet. So whatever, 2.48, I think was the last one, or 10.48.
Yeah, you have to upgrade your computer to the most newest version for the 10.5 update.
No, 10.14. You don't have to do Catalina.
Joe, what's your DAW of choice?
Well, I use Cubase because Glen uses Cubase, but interestingly enough, because of school, have gone away from Macs to PCs. So I use a PC and Glen uses a Mac, but we're still able to use Cubase. We're both using Cubase 10.5.
Glen, you're still just Cubase man?
Cubase since forever, actually, since the mid-90s, I'd say.
A lot of people swear by Cubase. You know, it's got great graphics on the automation and what is it, the thing though that really takes the cake for Cubase for you?
Well, for me, I've tried the others. I've tried Logic, but I always come back to Cubase just because for me, that's where I started.
Yeah. And
just the workflow just seems to work. But I've tried Logic, I've tried Live, and I just can't get my head around them.
Well, sometimes they are counterintuitive. It depends on how you approach them. I find like, you know, I started liking Ableton Live at first, and then I hate it now for full composition. But like, you know, some things just bring it on, the vibes, and some things don't. Total vibe killer DAWs. but it's good to know who's working on what. Dale, you work on DAWs?
I was using Cubase myself.
Oh wow, awesome! I want to hear something that you sequenced, Dale. Glen, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Artifact Records did a fantastic job re-releasing some of our recordings that we did with Al Nelson when we lived next to you guys. Images when we lived in Toronto.
Right.
Gary, remember the racket that we used to make, Al Nelson and I, as the Flu next door?
Oh yes, I remember very well.
I'm not allowed to play that album at home. My wife refuses to play that album. But I gotta say, the whole essence of the recording has been captured very well in a double album. And Dale, I'm very happy to say that you are guest vocalist on a song.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that the Flu?
That was handy. We lived right next door.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. The memories.
I ordered that record.
Did you?
I paid money for it.
Thanks, man. I would have sent it to you. I don't think it sells very well.
No, I bought one. I wanted that.
I can assure you it doesn't sell very well. My wife is laughing.
Do a shameless plug. What is it, Kevin? What's the name of the album? And how do we get it?
Patsy, The Worst of the Flu.
The Worst of the Flu, right?
Something like that, yeah.
But remember, I played on some Flu tracks at Mushroom. Are they on there? Whatever happened to that? I don't even know what they were. I think there was so much smoke in the room that I couldn't see the song.
I don't know, Joe. I mean, I'm pretty sure that
I fell asleep while I was playing an organ part.
That could have been Hilt. That could have been by the time it got to Hilt.
No, I think it was still the Flu.
I do not think the Flu ever recorded a song. Well, I think we did actually in Mushroom.
It might have turned into Hilt then. I don't know what that was, but I just remember very foggy room and playing organ parts. You wanted some psychedelic organ parts like Doors. And I just remember falling asleep while I was playing the part, kind of like my head going down as it does when I'm driving.
Fun time.
Oh man, you guys, this has been a treat and a half having you here. I wanted to pose to the public out there, if you've got any questions, please pose them now while we're all here. I see solid support on just reformation, plenty of time for new tracks. Al Nelson, I raise a glass.
Mm-hmm. Al,
thank you so much.
Give any shout outs? Any shout outs?
Any shout outs?
Yeah, let's Stephen Gilmore. Shout out to Stephen Gilmore.
Shout out to Stephen Gilmore.
Doing all our album covers and great gig posters.
Rick Arbor. Shout out to Rick Arbor.
Roman Reingruber.
Yeah, road manager.
I'll
go back a bit.
Groin grabber. Ruben Groin grabber.
Groin grabber, yeah. Don, I'll go back a bit. Access Entertainment, Barry Samuels. Shout out to him for starting everybody back in the day.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I got one. What about Dean Cameron? R.I.P. Dean Cameron.
Yeah.
He was a good guy. What about fellow bands that we listen to? Is anybody still checking in with people like? I see Strange Advances coming back.
Yeah, Drew is putting that together, and we're in touch and always support those guys, of course.
See, Tom from Mauve is releasing stuff like once a month on Facebook. I see his posts. His stuff's
Really?
pretty good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Don, what are the chances of Madeline ever singing with on Numb or Mauve again?
No, never again. Because she, after she was doing the solo stuff and had a record deal with A&M, which went really wrong, and just never ever wanted to do anything with the music industry again.
Oh, that's sad. She had a lot of charisma too.
Smart girl.
What are you listening to these days, Dale?
Me? Oh, bit of everything.
Like what?
Big bluegrass fan, you know?
Really? Serious?
I don't know, classical music, jazz. I love all kinds of music. Band wise, I like Deer Rouge. We actually got to play with them out here. That was fun. And what else I'm listening to?
Well, you guys are also playing with the Spoons out there, I see as well.
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah.
I'm expecting to see Gowan come up pretty soon. Is he still around?
Gowan's still around. Yeah.
He's in
with
Styx.
Yeah, he's with Styx.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Styx, like as in STYX, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
rock band.
That's where Gowan is these days. He has
Glenn,
been
what are
for
you
a long
listening
time.
to these days?
Oh, anything with a synthesizer in it, I'll give a spin. So that's, same old stuff I always listened to when we were all together. Anything that's electronic is where my taste swings.
No specialties?
No, not really.
You tend to go for the older music or the newer music?
I still listen to a lot of Tangerine Dream. So anything that's kind of likens back to that is kind of where my taste falls.
Tangerine Dream released a box set with like the first 3 albums or something like that. Did you see that?
I did see it. I haven't picked that up yet, but I've read some things about it.
Is it great?
It's so good, man. It's the best Tangerine Dream I've ever heard. And it's like the original album covers all in the box is so pristine and
And it
beautiful.
was all remixed.
You guys remember going to see Tangerine Dream at 86th Street, not 86th Street, the 86 Expo 86 Theater.
Yeah, I remember.
That was
I wasn't here.
incredible.
I saw them in Toronto at Massey Hall, that same tour.
Yeah.
I went to that.
Joe, what are you listening to these days?
I made a deal with myself to not listen to old music very much. So I'm listening to a lot of lady electronic artists like Caitlin Aurelia Smith and Anna Meredith and Laurel Halo and artists like that. And then I'm trying to listen to a lot of Canadian music. I'm just, different Canadian bands that are, kind of electronic or not electronic. Braids, Holy Fuck, I really like them.
Great name.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a door closer.
Yeah.
But they're a great band. I really like them. And Wire just put out a new album.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they've been putting out an album almost every 2 years now, and it's a little bit the same-ish, but at the same time, there's always something really surprisingly good on one of them.
Mhm.
So I listen to them, and then I just go on to Spotify and I let it show me things that I've never heard before. I'm always looking for something that I like that doesn't sound like something I already like.
It's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
What about you, Don Gordon?
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. There's no one particular artist, or it's like expose yourself to as many things as possible. You know, with a predilection towards things that are electronic. But like Joe, it's like the new Wire. Yeah, when that came out, I was like, oh wow, what's this? And there were some really nice things on there. But for the most part, yeah, it's trying to find new things, because whilst I love old Tangerine Dream and all those things, I've heard them. You're looking for that feeling that you used to get when you were younger, when you're hearing music for the first time and it was all new to you, where it was like, wow, I've never heard this before. And so that's harder to find as you listen to a lot of music. So now, you're looking for that experience again. And it's just like, it's almost like a religious experience, chasing this thing.
Yeah. Although one thing, Glen and I keep looking at, John Fox always has new stuff coming out. And it's always kind of cool because he's not exactly doing the same thing.
Yeah. When there's that guy who works with Benji, or however you pronounce it, the guy who has the synth museum basically, and puts out all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing about John Fox's music is that it has aged so well. I mean, Metamatic and stuff that he created during that time has become quite timeless.
Don, you played that for me the first time I heard it.
Yeah.
Even better today. I think he's got like a huge amount of credibility too. He's kind of like sticking to his guns. It's been really odd for me here meeting Gary Newman and having him turn into kind of like a friend. It's like the weirdest feeling when you think about like how much he inspired like everybody and everything, and just like casually talking about a barbecue with the guy. Like,
Wow.
Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Gary, what do you listen to these days?
Well, I'm kind of like those guys. I just what I find is that without all of you to inspire me, and that sort of what we used to do, going down to Quintessence or whatever, wherever we went, those days were great because we inspired each other, and that's the one thing that I find in my life now that I'm lacking. I have a few friends that, you know, I watch what Joe goes, what concerts he goes to and I'll give a shout out to my friend Russ Breaky and his partner Kat. They go to so many concerts, and so I look to see what they're into and hear about new bands that way.
Yeah, it kind of goes back and forth. I look for new bands on online or on blogs, and I just if I like it, I kind of follow them up and I see if they're touring, and then if they're coming to town, I go see them. And now I'm not as shy as I used to be, so now I go up to these bands and I talk to them and kind of just talk to them about why they do what they do and how they do it, and talk about gear. So I've met a lot of these, like actually other bands like Xeno and Oaklander or Wingtips, or I'm trying to think of other bands like that I've gone to see, and then kind of talk to them, and you know, they may have actually heard of us, and that's even better because then it gives you a little bit of credibility. But yeah, Russ was the guy that put in the word for Glen and Joe to open at for mid-Europe.
That's right.
So he used to go to 300 concerts a year. I try and go to a concert a week if possible. So it's been quite hard with all these shows that have been canceled in this last little while. I've got all these tickets that haven't been refunded.
Well, I've come from the other side because living in Southeast Asia, you did not have access to live music of this variety at all. So basically for years and years and years, you'd see nothing. I mean, one highlight though, I went to see Kraftwerk in Singapore of all places.
Wow.
Wow. Cool.
You know, and it was such a strange thing because they were playing in a venue, which is also where the symphony would play and stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking back to when I first heard Kraftwerk when I was in university, and thinking Autobahn up, they're not going to be around, and here you are decades later watching this band in Southeast Asia. It was a very strange experience for me.
Cool.
So I've completely gotten out of the live thing, and so I'm sort of actually looking forward to that now that I'm in Europe, being able to go actually to shows again on a regular basis.
So what was the last concert that everybody saw? Kevin?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, start with Joe.
Well, Gary and I were both at the Men Without Hats, Flock of Seagulls, the Spoons.
That's right.
That we're kind of obligated to go to. That's actually just like, it was just 4 blocks from my house, so it wasn't difficult to go to it.
Mostly to support the Spoons.
Yeah.
Glenn?
Last thing I went to was a drone concert with Joe back in December or something.
That was the same week. Yeah, that was
Drone?
There's a little art collective called the Red Gate Society in Vancouver, and they have all sorts of things, and there's a subgroup of that called Quiet City, and it was a bunch of drone artists, one from Portland, one from Calgary, and I think one maybe was local, and they just did different takes on drone and video combined, kind of the things we used to go see in Western Front.
What about
you warbled out, Joe.
I warble out. So yeah, so I was just talking about the Red Gate Society Quiet City that puts on a drone concert like once every 2 months or so. Drone.
Crystal says, yay, Quiet City.
Yeah.
Gail, what was your last concert you saw?
February in Montreal. It was the Beaches and Goodbye Honolulu.
Oh, nice.
Don?
What's that Goodbye Honolulu band?
Good, check them out.
Goodbye Honolulu.
Isn't John Switzer's son in that band?
That's your son's band, right?
Yeah.
Check it out.
John Switzer's too.
Martindale
Right?
and Goodbye Honolulu.
Before that was Alison Krauss.
What about you, Don?
Wasn't an artist. I went to Seville and went on a binge of going to flamenco shows every night for a week.
Is that in Spain?
Yeah.
Yeah. My last show was the guitarist of The Doors, Robbie Krieger. I went and saw him do a solo set at the Baked Potato here, it's called. It's a place that holds about 30 people, maybe 40 people.
Wow.
It's like being in somebody's living room. It literally
cool.
barely even has a PA. It has 2 mics hanging over the band. He had one of Prince's original drummers, and bass player was from some old A Million Bands guy. But he was playing Doors covers with one of the girls from American Idol, this Haley girl. And I have to say, it gave me goosebumps. Like, it was just unbelievable. She could do a Janis Joplin impersonation that was just dead on. It would do some Janis songs.
Cool.
I don't know. I went through a period where, in the early 90s, where I got really into the Doors. I don't know why. It was like I just became infatuated for about 3 or 4 years, and I had to read every book and had to see every album and do everything. And then finally saw Ray Manzarek play a small show in a bar with Michael McClure, and it was so cool. It just blew my mind. So to see Robbie Krieger do this, he hasn't actually done a show like this around here ever. So it was like it was pretty amazing. I'd be happy if that was my last show. That was a good way to go out. He did not play the end. It's kind of good. That was on March 12th.
Wow. Well, it may be a while, that's for sure.
So how are you guys staying inspired during the coronavirus?
I'm working. I'm in this room where I'm sitting right now, which is my music room, but it's also my office. So off to the side here is a stack of papers about this high of stuff from all my students. And even now I'm getting notifications saying this person handed an assignment, this person is asking for help because they can't. And I've been trying to adapt music websites that have embedded software for students to be able to do create songs using loops and doing also recording themselves playing along with backing tracks, and a choir class singing along with backing tracks. So I'm in here 8 to 10 hours a day doing music with students. Not much time for music for me most of the time.
Do you use like a Zoom type link to?
The software that we're using, or the website, is called Music First, and it has its own software embedded in there. It's got like a drum machine software, multi-track recording software, kind of like a looping software. But then we use Teams mostly for school with a little bit of Zoom. So we kind of go back and forth depending on it. There's some issues about the privacy aspects of it that don't allow us to use Zoom with students in more than a certain number of groups or a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So what university do you have to go to access these lessons?
It's not a university. This is high school. I'm doing it with grade 8s mostly.
So
Yeah.
we have to join the high school to get your lessons?
Well, yeah, you'd have to actually subscribe to the website. They gave it to us for free till June 30th, and then we have to pay for it if we want to continue. So it's been a lot of me learning how to do stuff too, because it's not how I was doing it. Usually I'm in a classroom with the students at their workstations.
Yeah. It's at musicfirst.com, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it.
It's pretty good. I mean, it takes a while to navigate it, to get it to do what you want it to do. And it's like many of these online things where it starts out way too simple and then gets hard in one lesson, and then people can't keep up with it. So
what is it
the biggest
called?
challenge is actually getting the students. Like, I'm still trying to contact students 2 months later. Like, students are in India, students are in Montreal, students are in the States. They're kind of stranded where they were when everything shut down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it called, Joe, again, the system?
Music First.
And is that
One
something
word, Music First.
can go on and find you on there, or is that?
Because it's registered through the school. So you'd have to be, I can register you if you want.
Oh, okay.
As a student. I'll send you a link.
Yes, my ears do perk up when I hear inspiring information. Yes, that is correct, Mr. Pete Logic. I always notice my eyebrows go up too. Dale, what are you doing to stay? Are you inspired during all this lockdown, or are you creating, or?
Yeah, I'm writing stuff with some musicians right now, and they'll send me stuff, and I'll send just sing into my phone on the way. We put ideas back and forth that way any way we can, rather than being in a room. And looking forward to a room eventually, But yeah, working on stuff. So.
What about you, Glenn?
I've been kind of forcing myself, whether inspired or not, just to spend a little bit of time every day in here, recording little sequences and things, and just filing ideas, and doing a lot of walking outside.
Don?
Bought a new synth. That's always inspirational.
Oh yeah, which one?
The Pro 3.
Say it again.
That's
The
what I'm
point
like.
3, the new sequential one.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Beautiful, huh?
Yeah, no, it's been great fun. And like for me, this is great because getting back into hardware after not using it for ages, it's a whole different experience, and it just brings creativity back in a different way. And also kind of like what Joe was talking about earlier, it's like you're actually just playing things and recording the audio rather than everything being sequenced and using virtual synths and all, and where you're tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. It's like, just play it, get it in there, and you know, if you need to, you can tweak it a bit, but just leave it.
I've heard the new Waldorf stuff, the Quadra and the Hydrasynth and stuff like that. Some really nice pieces too. Though I haven't had a chance to jam on them myself, but everyone just can't stop talking about.
So you got there,
That's
Glen?
Quantum, the Waldorf Quantum. Pretty amazing.
How you liking it?
Oh, it's amazing. That's
It's everyone who's got it's just like loving it to death.
it's amazing. It's unbelievable. It can do just about anything. It's pretty cool.
I see a Waldorf back in the rack there too.
Yeah, that's the old microwave. That's
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, you can't really even beat those old school ones either. They're just so damn good.
yeah.
Coveted now. Gary, what you doing to stay inspired during this? I know your industry is locked down.
Completely locked down. I bought a bike, and for the first time in many, many years, I'm riding the trails of Stanley Park and Pacific Spirit out by UBC, and UBC is the best place to ride. And like Don, a lot of walking. I've got some goals of reacquiring some gear, a base, and I think Glen suggested the Pro 3 as well. So I'm going to try and do that. But money's a little tight right now, you know, pretty much, you know, not too much income.
It sure is great how the Canadian government is taking care of everybody up there, though. I mean, literally,
Not bad.
what you told me the other day sounds very admirable. I'm very proud of Canada for doing that. Down here, we received a $1,200 payment one time, and it was like, okay, well, fend for yourself. You know, I hate to say it, don't ever say again, this is the greatest country on earth. Oh, I shouldn't say that.
Well, it's good to be a Canadian right now. I will say that. It's good to be a Canadian.
I'm still Canadian, forgive me.
Yeah.
Don, how about you over there in Spain? Are they taking care of you?
No, they're not taking care of me, but I think they've done a really good job considering that they were sort of late to the party in terms of picking up on it, but they've done a really good job in managing it.
Yeah.
And it's been really interesting to watch a community respond to this in a positive way. So like when it first got going and they put the lockdown in, like every night at 8 o'clock, seriously, everybody was coming to their windows and like leaning out the windows and clapping and singing along. And then you literally on Fridays and stuff, you'd have musicians like that would be in the neighborhood who you didn't even know about, who'd like give impromptu concerts, like solo performances from their windows and things like that. And it's been a really, you know, quite inspiring, you know, community response.
Yeah, cool.
That is amazing. And they're doing that in Vancouver too, right, guys?
Yeah, 7 p.m. every night they do it here. How about you, Dale?
Not so much. Yeah, I'm not right downtown, but I know Craig Martin, the guy who does the classic albums thing, is playing a song every night around 7 o'clock.
Right.
Up
There's probably something downtown.
Cabbage Town, yeah.
Cabbage Town.
Yeah.
Wow, very interesting, guys. This has been like, I've been looking forward to this all weekend. I literally had dreams about it for a couple days before we did this chat. And I must say, it's like, I'm just so happy that all you guys are alive and still with us. And I could hug you all right now, give you a hug virtual.
That would be nice, yeah.
I love you all. The thing I love about this band is that the respect we all have for each other is undying and has never left. We never had like, you know, one person that didn't speak to another person or anything. Everyone's always been there for each other. That's the way it should be. And if you're going to ever get into a band, just pray and hope that you get into a band with guys as nice as these 5 guys have been to me. So I really just want to thank you guys for joining me here today on this chat. And I think I'll wrap it up there unless you guys got something else that you need to get out or want to say.
Thanks for me as well for organizing it.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Nice seeing
Yeah, thanks for
Let's
doing it.
certainly pass the love to the fans for tuning in today, both Patreon and from the Images in Vogue official links and sources. You guys rule. Keep supporting the band. Thank you, everybody, for your support out there. Stay strong with everybody. All right, guys.
Okay, let's do that reunion show, guys. Let's not forget that. Okay.
Yep.
2021.
See everybody.
2022.
2022. Let's say 2022.
Okay, we lock it in, and
Okay.
we'll do something. We'll do some recording, like put together a project where we record, do something, and have everybody involved.
For sure.
Okay, guys.
Okay,
Later.
thank you. Great seeing
Bye,
you.